Welcome to another episode of Richard Maybe Presents. In this episode, we'll take a look at the power of kindness, the infinite goodness of simple kindness. Something that we often take for granted. To be kind to one another, to be gentle, to be caring, to love one another, to show compassion to a fellow human being, to show kindness to all living things, to be kind, to have a kind heart. To simply love one another. Hi folks, Richard Maybe here with another vlog. The theme and subject of this vlog is the effervescent power of kindness. And a lot of times, lately it seems, kindness is becoming an endangered species, if you will. It doesn't seem as if kindness is as abundant as I remember in my childhood. I have a great story about kindness. When I worked for Amalgamated Consolidated, there was a gentleman who would come around to everybody's office and cubicle and take their recycling paper. The corporation was really big on recycling. So you had two plastic trash cans underneath your desk. One was for your banana peel when you ate your lunch at your desk, and the other plastic trash can was for paper, for recycling. So this gentleman would come around, and he had this kind of a dipsy dumpster, and it was made out of canvas. And he would grab your trash, your recycling trash can, and dump it into the small dipsy dumpster, which was made out of canvas. His name was Lou, and he was a great Yankee fan, and I'm a Mets fan. I knew the players a lot better back then in the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. So I want to be sensitive and respectful here. Lou was mentally challenged, and he did a great job, taking everybody's recycling. And I mean, he hardly ever called in sick. He was a really hard working man. At the time I was in my mid 30s, and I think he was about in his mid 30s. And about once a week, we'd meet in the cafeteria and have lunch together. Get a grilled cheese at the cafeteria, get a lemonade, and talk sports. That was our friendship was basically centered upon us busting each other about the Yankees and the Mets. If the Mets lost one day and the Yankees won, I would never hear the end of it. He'd be in his glory, and vice versa. I mean, if the Mets won and the Yankees lost, I gave him a hard time too. Well, lo and behold, I had no idea of this, but Lou's mom, her brother was a vice president at Amalgamated, one of the vice presidents at Amalgamated. I had no idea. They had different last names. So this seemed to be a theme at Amalgamated. My boss taps on the frame of my cubicle, and he says, Richard, Mr. Big wants to see you. I thought, oh boy, another, what did I mess up now? So anyway, I go over to my boss's office, knock on the frame of his door jamb, say, Frank, what time should I go over there? And he says, hold on. And he calls Mr. Big's executive secretary. They talk, kid around a little bit, and Frank puts the phone down and says, Mr. Big, I'll see you now. I thought, man, Mr. Big will see me now? I must have really messed something up. And as a footnote, I used to proofread and edit and write copy for in-house publications at Amalgamated. So at any rate, I was on the 5th floor, and the top executive offices were down the hall. So I go down, the whole routine, executive secretary, see Susie, and she says, have a chair, and I'll call Mr. Big, and boom. Mr. Big calls his secretary and says, tell Mr. Baby I'll see him now. Resounding, So Susie tells me that I can go and see Mr. Big. I knock on the door, and Mr. Big goes, come in. And I say, Mr. Big, Richard Mabey here. My supervisor said you wanted to see me. Mr. Mabey, sit down. I sit down, and again, the same, it was like being called into the principal's office, And I had this happen to me. Well, I was at Amalgamated for about 15 years or so. Actually more. I'd worked for them before, and anyway, maybe it was about 20 years altogether. And he says, I understand you're pretty good friends with Lou McGuire, the fellow that picked up the recycling. And I said, yeah. I said, yes, sir. I always kid around with him about he likes the Yankees and I like the Mets, and we kid around, and we have lunch, the old grilled cheese with tomato, and have lunch maybe once a week in the cafeteria. And he looks me in the eye and he says, well, you know, he's my nephew. I said, no, sir, I didn't know that. And he says, well, Mr. Maybe, I just want you to know that I appreciate you befriending my nephew. A lot of people here don't treat him very well. And I just want you to know I appreciate it. I said, well, thank you, Mr. Big. I said, I appreciate that. He says, well, Mr. Maybe, I'm sure you've got a lot of work to do there today, and I don't want to keep you from your work. I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate befriending Lou and being kind to him, being nice to him. And I want you to know I won't forget that. I said, well, thank you, Mr. Big. I appreciate that. And we shook hands and said our goodbyes. And I left his office. And his executive secretary says to me, well, that wasn't so bad, was it? And maybe it was my imagination, but from that point on, I was given certain privileges. And it was almost as though I was protected. You know, I could do no wrong. And that's from one act of kindness, befriending the gentleman who collected the recycling. And I mean this respectfully. Who was mentally challenged. And a lot of the people that amalgamated did not treat Lou very well at all. Some of the people mocked him and ridiculed him, never knowing that he was Mr. Big's nephew. And I never told, and Mr. Big told me not to tell anyone that Lou was his nephew. Now I'm telling the whole world. That's pretty funny. Now I'm telling the whole world. Now I'm, so at any rate, that's how powerful kindness can be. I don't know what else to say. Be kind. Love one another. Forgive. Be kind to people. Be kind to strangers. Encourage each other. And as Roy Rogers used to say, happy trails until we meet again. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate all of you taking an interest in my vlog. Good night, folks.